Hello. I am live, I think, always trying to manage this technological issues. Here they got entangled. Yeah, sorry. The wires were entangled with the string of the glasses. So it should work now, I hope. Okay, so good morning. Sem cham tam chide wa tang de we gyu tang den pa gyu chi du nya tang du nya gi gyu tang de wa gyu chi du nya me pe de wa tang pa tang mi de wa gyu chi nye rin che dang ni dang ten wei tang yong se me pa na ni pa gyu chi. May all beings attain happiness and realize the causes of happiness. May all beings become free from suffering and realize how they can be free from the causes of suffering. May all beings remain in joy which is beyond suffering, and may all beings establish their presence in equanimity, free from attachment to the beloved ones and things, and free from aversion towards the apparent enemies and annoying things. Om Ahum Benze Guru Pema Siddhi, Om Ahum Benze Guru Pema Siddhi, Om Ahum Benze Guru Pema Siddhi. So actually, I started in English. I was supposed to speak French. Anyway, I'll try to do it in English. It's going to be quite a challenge because, I had a meeting this morning. It was scheduled for another day, and my beloved husband told me, "Why don't you do something anyway, since you're ready and the technological mystery that I have to try to manage is ready, go ahead." So that's what I'm doing, but it's so improvised that I started in English, but actually I was supposed to speak French. Let's try. Which means that I'm going to go through my relationship with Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche a little bit, but it's possible that I will talk more times about this, because probably it can be inspiring, and it's also a way for me to learn how to talk about the Dharma from my own experience. Now, talking about Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche and his importance, crucial importance in my life, is probably the most important thing. And in this case, I chose a book that is called Dharma and Creativity, which in English actually now has a new name, because the edition, they did I have it also actually in English. I could have gone and taken it, but maybe I'm going to try to translate on the spot. You see, it's an old book. I have a few of them, but this one was quite filled with everywhere stuff. It's called Pure Perception in English. It was used to be called Dharma Art, but the first edition of Dharma Art actually was, how you say, there was no more of them, and then they did a new edition with more material, which is very good, and it's called Pure Perception. Yeah. I think Pure Perception is a very good title for Buddhist practitioners. It's not as easy for maybe people who don't understand the Vajrayana, because even people who do practice Vajrayana, usually we don't understand Pure Perception anyway. An artist Dharma art is quite the word that Trungpa Rinpoche used to use, and that is straightforward. I mean, it's art, Dharma art. And actually, I want to tell you one story first. It's not the first time I tell this story. It's that Jack Nyland. Actually, I met Jack Nyland on an occasion that was completely unexpected, because I did not know him at all. I had no idea he exists. And I was in a very, very deep crisis in my life, because the planet Pluto was passing through all my planets in Sagittarius. I have many of them in that place. And it was destroying all of my life, everything. And I was quite easily deeply emotional at that time, because my practice was not yet what I would say that for my experience and my passion and extreme dedication to whatever I would do, I did not have the tools that I needed to be able to canalize my energies. So that led me to getting sick a few times, and getting really, sick enough to probably die, but I didn't. Yeah, here I am. And then when I did finally met the tools that Trungpa Rinpoche taught, but that are more, you have to dig for them, and he left them to people who are not always realized. Some are more than others, of course, but they don't have the level of deepness of realization usually as Trungpa Rinpoche was manifesting. Nevertheless, they work, the tools, they work. So nowadays I'm quite better, and even my health is improving thanks to that, because I'm able to canalize these emotions quite well, and from a perspective that I did not at all know. And it's very simple and very difficult. What is difficult about that is that you need to be simple. Yeah, probably that's a good. So I'm not going to explain these. These are the topic of the 5 wisdoms, but there will be a reference to the 5 wisdoms here. Excuse me. So this book, Dharma Art, has been one of the core books that completely changed my life. And as I told you, when I had this time of crisis, I went to United States because I ended up reading this book. I was just brain operated, and after that, I was quite weak. And a friend of mine took me home in Spain and took care of me somehow. But when I was getting a little bit better, I could not see actually normally. I was seeing double. So if I would look at an object, I would see 2. And actually I would see one object like that and the other object like this. Everything, all the lines, everything. So everything was a big confusion. But I was starting to be able to see from here, a little bit like these birds, when they look at you like this. And so I wanted to find Shambhala, the book, Shambhala, The Path of the Warrior, to offer to a Spanish friend of mine, somebody else. And I went to a library in Victoria, the city of Victoria. And I did not find Shambhala, but I found Dharma Art in Spanish, which had also another title. It was Visual Art and Perception, the name. Yeah. And I looked at that and I was like, oh, he wrote a book about art. I can't believe it. Because I was obsessed with Trungpa Rinpoche. And I did the Nyunjo, and I did practice under great masters as Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. And my main master was Lama Kunzong. And then I also studied with Ringo Tulku Rinpoche, with Khenpo Tsu Trim Gyatso. to tell you the main teachers. Yeah. And now also I'm receiving empowerments and teachings, deep Mahayoga from Lama Glen and Chongwola, Master Chongwola. So when I met in America Jack Nyland, it is because Jack Nyland did receive, he is the person who did receive the direct transmissions from Trungpa Rinpoche about Dharma Art in the United States in the very beginning when Trungpa Rinpoche arrived in the United States. And he arrived at the place where Trungpa Rinpoche was there with his wife and his child since a very short time. They had not much, they didn't have much money or much thing, but somebody offered them a farm, a place, and he was creating a magic space there to start, not only start teaching the Dharma, because he already did give a few talks and he was always starting to be renowned by a few people. And Jack Nyland told me that they were hanging around in a car, him and his beloved girlfriend, Sarah. Like Sarah was young, she was teenager, she was running away from her home. And somebody told them, you have to go there because there's the Dalai Lama. It was Trungpa Rinpoche, it was not the Dalai Lama. But anyway, they went there looking for the Dalai Lama. And they were all hippies, you know. And so when they arrived, Trungpa Rinpoche just ended up asking to somebody, could you find somebody who knows how to draw? And that person met in the street, I mean, not the street, but on the ground in the garden or something like that in front of the door, Jack Nyland. And he told him, do you know how to draw? And Jack Nyland, of course, knew how to draw. He was very good at that already. He was already working for companies and doing stuff with logos and drawings. He was a genius. And Jack said, yes. And so he said, oh, come. And then he arrived alone in a room with Trungpa Rinpoche, alone too. And Trungpa Rinpoche already spoke English, of course, because he learned in England. He was one of the first Tibetan to really speak absolutely fluently and with a great quality English language. And so Trungpa Rinpoche told him, yes, I was expecting you, Jack. We need to draw ah. So they were creating the syllable germ. I mean, in practices in Vajrayana Buddhism, when we create a mandala in a sadhana, sadhana is a set of practice. It's like a choreographical trip, you know? Like you open and then you create slowly something and then you dissolve it. So it starts from the state of dissolution of zero and it goes growing from the germ, from the seed. It's a seed syllable, which is a sound. Because you see it, but you hear it. So you are already placing your mind on that level of frequency, of vibrations. But of course, a vibration from the ears is a sound, and the vibration from the eyes is a form with a kind of a color. From the human eyes, of course. We are human, we should understand that all beings have different senses, and they are not lower than our senses, they are just different. So we are never the supreme truth ourselves as human beings. We are just what we are. We should probably do our best to find our best, no? Because we are able to do that, which others are not always able to do. Yeah. So Jack Nyland was spending the whole day long with Trungpa Rinpoche. He didn't expect to stay there hours and hours. And many people told me that they were fascinated and completely in love with Trungpa Rinpoche, but sometimes they were afraid of meeting him and suddenly spending 2 or 3 days unexpected time that would cut through their schedule. But at that time when they were hippie, it was not like that, no. It was not so difficult. So they draw the first seed syllable A. I think that was in the Tiger Tail, which was the name of the place. And then Jack Nyland was completely involved with that, so they spent more than that day together. And Trungpa Rinpoche told him, now we have to paint the door. So actually they were really processing the birth of the vibration, of the quality of frequencies for people to share the Dharma, to learn the Dharma, to practice the Dharma. It's a magical world. So actually, if you look at this is art. But this is a very deep kind of art because, of course, it's magic, yes. But magic is usually art also. But in this case, the magic is not quite white or black. The magic is completely like a rainbow. The idea of magic in Vajrayana is that you understand that everything of this perception, which is not pure, is completely dependent on how you make it be and how you relate with it and how much you don't understand that it's your own creation most of the time. So what you do is that you are creating a pure perception, you are creating a pure land, you are creating a pure mandala. And you are allowing yourself to be possessed by this divine manifestation that does come from nothing and does dissolve in nothing, just as well as each thought in our mind and in conversations. Yeah? They appear from nothing and disappear into that same nothing special. And Jack Nyland got completely involved, and he's the person who did create all the visual work, art for Trungpa Rinpoche. It has been extremely important because it was the foundation. So when I met him because Walter Fordham, that I met in a workshop in the Rocky Mountains. It was called Shambhala Rocky Mountains at the time. Now I think it's called Drala. He was there in a meeting about Trungpa Rinpoche, and we were luckily very few people, because at that time almost nobody really remembered that much Trungpa Rinpoche, even though his books were such a great success. But only 13 people. And I was so happy because I had a lot of opportunity to talk with people and to be in an intimate sense of sharing about their lives. These people, I mean, there were like 4 or 5 people sharing their memories about Trungpa Rinpoche, and I was there to meet him because I really realized when I saw this book for the first time that this was exactly what I was trying to do. I was trying to do it alone in my little Europe and all alone. So before I come back to this story, just to tell you, I was an artist and I was completely involved with Dharma practice, but at one point, because of working like an artist, I started to be like moving around, living here, living there, living there, and living there. And at one point I had to really take responsibility for my practice and for my Dharma evolvement. So I did live for a few years really in retreat, and like 3 or 4 years in retreat, and did the whole Nyuntro. But at that time, no, I was taking responsibility for students and for people following me, and we were training with dance, and with dance we were creating exactly that, some magical spaces to work on ourselves, but also to manifest art. because my feeling is that art should be respected. It should be, even if you can allow yourself to do whatever it is, even if it's not that very good, that doesn't mean that technique cannot be infused with Dharma, with the truth, but also with the goodness of how each technique was transmitted through humankind. People discovered something and then it comes to you, and when it comes to you, it is precious. So I did not understand why dance should become an art that people just do like that, you know. It's as respectful and valuable as music, and as actually it's the same. It's just the same in another form, in another experience, but it is completely involved with theater and music. So anyway, I was quite alone in my quest for an art that would be directly related with Dharma, but also that would help people to receive in their quest for dance, for example, in the idea of dance, they would receive what I did not. I received very good training, and I received training from really nice people, very inspiring people, and I consider them like my masters. They are part of the lineage for my life. Now, I did not receive the Dharma, and I was eager for something in my life that I knew existed, and I knew I was born for that, but I was only seeing complicated things and people with suffering and people running after money and fame and things like that, and I knew it was not that. I knew that was not it. And then dance also was becoming so kind of conceptual. I was thinking, why? I mean, when you dance, it's specifically because you're not trying to explain. You're trying to become. You are actually exerting yourself to become something that nobody can explain. Yeah? Why would you explain that? Why would you make a concept out of that? So it was not easy for me. It was easy for me to dance. What was not easy for me was to, earn my life with that and not betray my authenticity, because I needed to be like that. So that's what I did. And I did manage, just as he explained in this book, Trungpa Rinpoche. And so this is why when I saw this book, I thought, wow, he did it. So I went to the United States, and I had this synchronicity going on. Suddenly the whole synchronicity happened, like that, tack, 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 tack. Somebody paid me the ticket, and somebody this and that. And then somebody gave me an address to stay there. And it was all like, poof, 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 opening. And from people I don't know, actually. It was not really friends or like that. And so when I actually, at the end, met I just said his name before, Walt Fordman, and he told me, you have to meet Jack Nyland, because Jack Nyland is the one who got the transmission of Dharma Art. Because I was asking everybody about Dharma Art, and actually nobody was really telling me much stuff, It was not easy at that time. Dharma Art was kind of so mysteriously not formal and not conceptual, but that most people didn't seem to appreciate it enough, from my point of view, of course. And there's lots of stories, but I'm not going to tell everything now because it's a long story. For me, there's lots of details about what happened in Narapa University and all that. And I did receive very, very, very sharp and perfect transmissions from Lee Worley, that yes, from the theater and the mudra space awareness. But otherwise, it was kind of not really obvious to understand what Dharma Art was. And it was strange because out of no kind of rational decision, I did take my airplane tickets back. I bought both, I go and come back. At that time I had no money, so I really had to do everything with the minimum. So I took go and come back. And my coming back was from Colorado to New York. And then I decided to spend 3 days in New York. but I had not a clue of an idea why I would stay in New York, you know. I didn't care about doing tourism, you know. I thought, I'm going to New York, and I actually even thought about Isadora Duncan, maybe I find something about her or whatever. And I had no place to stay. I could not pay an hotel. I had no idea what I was going to do. And then when Walter Fordman told me, you have to meet Jack Nyland. I had Jack Nyland on the phone. I didn't know him, and he was completely crazy about me coming because I was a gypsy dancer. You know, because actually I got more known as a gypsy dancer at that time. And then he told me that he found me a place to stay. So I did stay in a place which is a small room, a beautiful small room, very cozy, in the house of Kilian Ganley, who's a great friend of mine and of everybody I've been working with in my school, because I usually told my students to stay in his place if they go to New York if he wanted, and he was enchanted. So everyone became friends of Kilian since then and still now. And he received me very kindly, and I spent 3 days with Jack Nyland, who told me this story about the seed syllable and the door. We spent 3 days non-stop talking about Trungpa Rinpoche and about Dharma Art. And at one point, Jack Nyland told me that he asked Trungpa Rinpoche, oh, Chögi, he used to call him Chögi. Chögi, it makes me a little bit cry, these stories. What is the most important? Is it Vajradhatu? Is it Kasung? Is it Shambhala? All these trainings that Trungpa Rinpoche established in such a short time, which is absolutely incredible. I never understood how he could establish so many things in such a short time. Only 14 years. What is Dharma Art? What is the most important? And Chögi said, Jack, what do you think? What is it I do all day long? And Jack answered, mistake. He made a mistake. He didn't understand it. He said, you do the Dharma, yeah? The practice of Dharma, I mean, the Dharma that is traditional. And Jack said, what I do all day long is Dharma Art. And this was for me something, I understood it. And I nowadays understand that as Dzogchen, as Mahamudra. And for me, I don't say it's the truth, you know, it's just my stuff. Mahamudra and Dzogchen is art. It's just that we sometimes need tools that are a little bit elaborate for us to manage to become simple. How is it we become simple? I think I told you about these tools were simple, yeah? But we're not simple. So when we do a sadhana and we create the seed syllable and the door and the space and the divinity and all of these things, it's complex, but it does put our brain in another kind of a mood. And it does, each time we're doing it, it kind of shifts the usual software of our daily life. But daily life is the topic at the end, you know? Because the daily life is where it's happening. You don't have to do it. It's happening anyway. So, yes, you do create a world, you do relate with the fact that you are dedicated to your path, so you repeat it so you don't forget, you don't get, you know, zapping away by whatever kind of juicy or painful thing that attracts you. And then you do remember it's for all beings. And then you also do remember that all of this evolves into this sense of openness, like the sky, doesn't really have to always have a form to rely on. There's a sense of nothingness, but it's not nothing, it's more that the mind itself, in its own presence, when it is not distracted by its contents, has the ability to experience itself. And so in that state of mind, there is the possibility to experience something that is not anything we could describe. It's because it's not about contents. So this is the part where you start in these kind of practices. This is from where you start. It's the ground. So the ground is the sky. And then the syllable, seed. Seed means fertile. From that syllable starts, no? The life. And at one point, maybe even also yourself, you become that syllable. And from there happens lots of things. Each practice is different. But when he was doing this in this place, he was creating not only the Dharma Center, he was establishing Dharma in America. I said America, I didn't say only United States, because actually they ended up in Canada. So I want to take a part of this book, and I understand now, since time goes so quick now, I could have been doing this all day long. I will have to do more. So at one point, I want to read, of course I will have to translate, if I'm able to, from French. Little parts of this book. So like here. In the domain of art, we are talking with Dharma Art. The state of touching the pencil or touching the clay or touching a paper before you touch. So it's the state before you touch the pencil, the clay, the paper. It is an ordinary state. It is quiet, fresh, with no neuroses. The word art itself brings us back to day activities, daily activities, including whatever discipline, artistical discipline we practice. This is not an hobby, it is all of our being. This is so beautiful. The practice of an art has no end. It infuses everything. Okay. So, there is this very important sentence here. The message is resumed in the appreciation of the nature of things as they are, and to express that without fighting thoughts and fears. We let go of aggression towards ourselves. That is letting go of the obligation to force ourselves to be impressive for others, and to let go of this aggression towards ourselves, or not towards others, which is the intention to fool them. It is very simple. Authentic art Dharma, is the activity of non-aggression. The Dharma art is the discovery of elegance. it is a question of your state of mind. This book, all Trungpa Rinpoche's books are treasure, are incredible. But for me, there has been 3 books that really completely blowed my mind off and changed my life. Literally. It was literally a transmission from the book, you know. No other book did that to me. It was literally these 3 books, they changed my life. Each one of them, one after the other. One when I was a teenager. It was the book that cut through spiritual materialism. It showed me what I was there for and what it was. I was really seeking. It was exactly that one. That was everything I had inside of myself was described in that book. The second one was very strangely Shambhala. I was in an hospital. I was almost like I thought I was going to die. And I knew Shambhala before, but I didn't understand it the first time I read it because I was so much, into the Dharma, just traditional Dharma, the stuff. And I knew Tibetan and I could read in Tibetan. So I thought Shambhala was too much of mundane stuff that I understood everything and it was simple and I didn't need that. It's only when I was in the hospital dying, in the middle of a quite poor hospital actually, because it was in Portugal. It was an hospital that had 1 bathroom for 20 women. And even the sheets were repaired with hand. And it was like 8 to 10 degrees inside in the winter there, So it was a poor hospital. I had a very strong tuberculosis. I was bleeding, and it was very strong because nobody noticed. And even I noticed I was sick, but it was because of a dream that I went to the doctor because the dream told me you have tuberculosis. So I went to the doctor and he said, you're crazy, you don't have. And I did. It was already very advanced. And I had this book, Shambhala, and I started to read it and it made me completely understand something that I never understood before, which was how the hell do you live in this crazy world? How the hell can I deal with a world that since I'm a child, I just can't get it? I still don't get it, but I can live. Still don't get it. Because since a child, I thought this was so crazy. I thought people made no sense and they were fighting and there were all these things happening. And in my heart, I actually thought Jesus was right, that you love each other. And I thought he was right to help the sick people and to respect women. And I liked him as a child and I really had devotion towards Jesus. But I didn't know how can I do that? How can I do that? Because actually I had no idea what my own responsibility was to myself understand that I am what I see outside of me. What happens in the world is actually, it has to do with me just because I'm there, You cannot be in a form, in a place that doesn't rely on who you are. It's impossible. It's just impossible. Then later you can understand that. Because, I live in the countryside. When there's no water, you don't see the snails. When there's water, there's snails all over the place. Because for snails to live, water is needed. So when there's no water, they just get inside of their shell and maybe they sometimes die because of too much sunshine. And sometimes they survive. Yeah, but they cannot live if there's not water enough. So each being, each perception in a being manifested by a form and a frequency of that being cannot exist if its karma brought him or her to a certain place. So wherever you are, whatever happens to you, it doesn't mean that you're guilty or you're not guilty. It doesn't mean that you're going to win or lose, because you won't neither win, neither lose. It means that you are actually in a place that represents yourself, with things happening that are a mirror of yourself. And I didn't understand that at the time. And when I wrote that book at that moment in the hospital, I understood. Yeah, he really gave me another one. And I completely changed because I was miserable, you know. I was really kind of self-pitying myself. And that was not useful for me to recover. And actually, since that day, I recovered very quickly. They wanted to keep me 2 months, and they kept me only 1.5 months when the doctor told me, "Now get out of here, we need the bed." You know? The doctor was a funny guy, a little bit rough, but I think he was funny. And I was suddenly, I don't know where to go. Well, I did have friends, so I ended up somewhere. But I was quite okay in the hospital already, you know. I was not any more miserable. And I didn't care anymore that these persons were difficult or crying at night or yelling at night or there was only one bathroom and all these things. I was completely different. Suddenly the bodhicitta was kind of my daily life, and that was thanks to Trungpa Rinpoche. He's my root master. And then the third book was Dharma Art, as I told you, when I was seeing double with my eyes. And I found it, and I didn't know it existed. And then I started to be very sad because I didn't really meet Trungpa Rinpoche. When I was young, I thought he was talking about the Dharma, like all masters would talk about the same Dharma. I didn't have this idea that I should meet him, you know. So I wanted to meet him even though he was gone. And so that's what I did. And I did meet him through all these wonderful people who loved him and who still cherish nowadays his life and his message and his energy, his presence. So here I have one more I want to tell you, because for today that will be enough. Another thing that's really nice that also happened to me is that once I had to give a workshop in Madrid. I was in a friend's house, Lucy Lopez. I was in her house, and I was in a very strange state of mind. I had a little bit of a spaced out. I was spaced out. I had no idea who I am. What am I doing? Why would I do that? What's happening? You know. And then I was really in panic. I started to panic. What am I going to do? I have these people in this place. I have to give a workshop. I have not a clue what we're going to do. And in that time, I was starting the danza duende, which was not gypsy. You know, it was working on the core of dance. But the core of dance is the core of your being. And it becomes automatically, of course, spiritual. Because you cannot work with art without having something that we would call spiritual, in the sense that it's working with the invisible part, which is very important actually. If you look at yourself, your invisible part is much more, it takes 99% of your day, even if you don't know it. Because your invisible part is the one that's having emotion, that's thinking, that's deciding, that's dreaming, that's making interpretations and talking. So I was really in panic. It was the first time I had such a panic because of being spaced out, you know. And so I prayed to Trungpa Rinpoche, please help me, please help. And she had the book, Lucy, of course, because we worked together and I told her about it. So she had the book, and I took the book in Spanish, the same, Dharma Art y Percepción Visual, algo así. And I opened the book, you know, like that with my left finger, yeah. And I ended up here in this, and it's very impressive, because when you read Trungpa Rinpoche's book, you have to understand. I mean, you have to. I'm saying to you, it's an advice from me. Read it many times. You never get it at the first time, you know. But you can read it like all your life, because each time you get it again, something else, something else. That's why lots of people, they don't even read because they say it's too difficult, I don't understand anything. You read it, don't understand, it's okay. I didn't understand, like not even 80% of it. But then you read it again, you read it again, you read it again. So here he's saying, the relationship with the world makes questions very difficult for us. What is the world and who does it belong to? And what does it mean to establish a relationship with the world? The most important, essential thing is to see that the world belongs to nobody, because nobody does exist as it is. The energy is in circulation, never ending, and it is belonging to nobody. It is an organic process of nature. And then he goes on with the fact that we usually do not work like that, but we work thinking that it does belong, the energy, don't we? So here he's given descriptions. I cannot read everything, it's too long. But here he says the second level of perceptions of the emptiness and the absence of things as they are, as they seem, let's say, which means that each thing has its own place and is always in a space, established in a space. This is too complicated to translate now, so I won't translate that. What I want to find is that at one point, excuse me, maybe I'm not at the good place. Just a moment. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so now I found it. So we come back to the first, the departure point. It looks like the point from which we start all authentic expression. The authentic expression exists by itself and takes birth by itself. To give a free openness to this expression, we need to come back to the real ground. Concerning ourselves at that stage, the only authentic ground that we have is to come back to the departure point. So he develops this idea, and then he ends up concluding, it is, what do we have either than the departure case, the point of departure? It's easy. We are always at the departure point. This is the key. And it's the key for memory too, which I can develop on another video. When we have to take decisions without knowing how to decide, when we are confused and terrified or sick, we always come back to the departure spot. I'm only taking little parts. So the authentic departure spot is when we realize the desolation of space. We could tell words that design all of this, but there is absolutely no answer. The departure spot is free from all kind of cultural identity. So at one point, he really explains that at one point as an artist, you do have these moments that you completely are spaced out because you are at your departure point. But usually we get afraid of it. And because we get afraid of it, we run away from the authentic work of art. And we try to find something to rely on that is kind of already solidified. Mm-hmm. Let me see if I find this. I will find it later in English for another video, excuse me. Because anyway, it is a very important topic. Because it has to do with the fact that meditation and all the practices that come from Buddha Dharma, this is what they are pointing out. And mindfulness also, the four establishment in mindfulness, the mindfulness of the body, of the sensations, of the mental processing of dhammas, of phenomena. This is also relating with exactly that thing. So actually you can be an artist and you can be completely in your Dharma practice full time. It's quite, and if you're a dancer, it's even easier because dance is all about your body and your body is all the time with you. So you can be all the time in your dancing Dharma process. So, yeah, this is coming to almost 1 hour of being here. Probably it's enough. I would like to go on with this, yes. I could go on with this in English for some time. Thank you very much. I am training because I want to be able to kind of let people know about the Dancing Dharma Study project, which is not yet born, but is being born. And I would also, I'm taking time, I'm not in a hurry, but I would also like to share my experience with the Danza Duende project, which I did work on very, very, very much, and which does have very valuable people representing it. And what was the experience in Danza Duende of infusing slowly the principles of Dharma in the training of the body and the mind and the speech by dancing. And then I would very much like also to talk about my work as an author, the books, because my second book is not yet in English, but it does exist already in Italian and in French. So it is a very interesting book, and I think I would also at one point talk about it. It's called The Island of B, because the main character is a woman called Arya B, and she, in that book, is 84 years old, and she is in 2046 living on an island which previously was the Estrela mountain in Portugal, but it became an island. So thank you very much. I think that it's enough to take an hour. And I want to thank my husband for telling me to do this. It was a good idea. It was very helpful for me too. Very, very inspiring. And I want to thank you. And let's dedicate Gewadi Nyododag Dharma Sagara Dubdyone Dowa Tikyan Malipa Dei Salagpa Sho Om Ahum Benze Guru Pema Siddhi Hum 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 Hum